My name is Era, and I'm the host of the Tamil Creator Podcast. I chat with creators from all over the world to share their stories and discuss hot topics in a way that I hope inspires, educates, and entertains you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tamil Creator. I'm your host. Today, I got a super special guest hopping on. His name's Jayaseelan, and if you don't know him, he's joining me today from Vancouver. This man goes between Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, pretty much the world. We'll leave that story for later. Dad started cutting hair as a hobby, left it for a while. And then he got, I think about 7-8 years ago, he got back into cutting it a bit more seriously. He's leveraged social media really well. He's traveled all over Europe teaching. He's used Instagram to kind of style athletes and celebrities, including Drake, Big Sean, J Balvin, and teams like the Toronto Blue Jays. So without further ado, Mr. Thad, why don't you kind of quickly introduce yourself more so? Let's talk about your upbringing, your family, and kick it off from there.
Sure, for sure. Thanks for having me, Ara. Super excited to be here. And, we've known each other for a very long time. So, this is a special one. With that being said, yes, my name is Thad Jayaseelan.
Sorry, I'll quickly add something about that as well. So in addition to being a very talented stylist, this guy was a great baller when he used to ball back in the day. That's actually how I met him. And the man has style just in general. So I'll let him speak now.
So what was the first question?
Oh, yeah. Just like talk about kind of your, the stuff we kind of talked about before, just your family, your upbringing, why like Montreal is kind of, like a second or third home for you, things like that.
Sure. So, both my parents are from Sri Lanka. I was born in Sri Lanka in Trinco. I left at the age of 2 to move to Montreal. I have 3 siblings. I have 2 sisters and a brother. It was quite different, moving around. I left Montreal to move to Scarborough and then move to Mississauga. I had to go from culture to culture, but it was a great experience. I'm now back in Montreal. I do have family there still, and I do have family in Toronto as well. But as of right now, I'm in Vancouver, just working on my new business.
Why don't you tell the people a bit about your new business, whatever you feel comfortable sharing?
For sure. So my business, the name of the brand is called Gradient. I've been working on it for a 1.5 years, but the company has been active for the last 5 months, which I'm very, very super happy about. Pretty much I sell cutting essentials from anything from, barber capes to combs to razor blades. Everything essential that you would need, whether you're a hairstylist, a barber. And so, I started that. And then now it's going more into hair products and working with other brands such as L'Oreal, Kerastase, Kiehl's. Throughout the years, I've kind of built up my network and my relationships with all these big brands. And so, we have a lot of new things coming.
So what made you decide to kind of go from being a stylist into kind of the entrepreneurial side, kind of be behind the scenes in a way where you're not cutting people's hair, now you're kind of giving them the tools or these products to help other people like yourself, do their job in terms of styling?
Yeah, for sure. I've cut for many years, and I still love to cut, and I do still cut, as in, I educate for a living, so I cut to teach. But I really wanted to create a brand. As I mentioned, I'm really into my fashion, and so, being able to travel the world and see what other brands have curated and seeing what they've done, I've always wanted to be something like that, but my own version. And so, throughout, I would say ever since I was a child, I've always dreamt of being in the fashion world, or just having my own fashion line, let's say. And so this idea came from just focusing on on what I know best, and that's to cut hair and anything related to hair. So, now I'm going more towards like a lifestyle brand, which of course will entail, clothing and skincare, and of course. But to start off, I really wanted to focus on what I know best, and so right now it's cutting essentials, and then actually tomorrow I release my event, which will happen November 14th, and yeah, and then we're gonna get into education as well. So there's a lot of new things that are happening, as well as collaborating with brands like L'Oreal and Kerastase.
Yeah, it's really awesome. You're kind of doing a ton of things. So you cut, you've launched Gradient,
Yeah.
and you also, I know, I've seen a lot of stuff on Instagram around like the education part. So you've traveled, especially abroad in Europe, teaching. Like, how did that opportunity come? Because you must have been good enough. I mean, not just kind of the technique and actually doing the cutting, but you must have been good enough to kind of educate or explain that to other people, which is a hard thing to do. Like, how did you get these opportunities?
Honestly, yeah. To, wow. Well, I think you kind of build your own opportunities. 5 years ago, I was like, I want to travel the world. I was cutting at a notorious barbershop, and I really wanted to travel the world and see the world, and see what that's like. And people around me, like the really well-known barbers and haircutters, were traveling from, like, say, Canada to US or to Mexico. And so, I really wanted to go to Europe because that's more my style in terms of like fashion and hair. So the first class was actually in Barcelona, and how I put that class together was just me going on Facebook and messaging barbershops and saying, hey, like, would you like a class? And so I met one person by the name of Charles, and he kind of helped me just put this class together. And so my first class was in Barcelona, with about like 17 to 20 people. And I still remember when I got there, I was like, wow, is this really happening? So I kind of just created my own opportunities, and I went from there to Prague, where my class was only 3 people. But at that class, I met one person by the name of Karel, who became a really good friend of mine, and then kind of just brought me over to Prague. And now I've been to Prague like 6 or 7 times, teaching like bigger shows and bigger classes. So I think it was just really taking the risk of just going there, meeting people, which is something that I've always wanted to to do, just meet different individuals, build relationships. And then one thing led to another, where my relationships has led me to being in the position that I am right now.
Yeah, so how'd you get that opportunity with L'Oreal? Was that kind of a byproduct of kind of doing all that stuff in Europe, or?
Well, yeah, well, I mean, so I was now traveling and teaching, and kind of, and I always talk about, when I teach my classes, like, it's all about building up your confidence, right? And when you have the confidence to do something, then you execute it properly, and you don't have any self-doubt. So um I was teaching a lot more classes, and building my confidence up. And then you know thankfully, like, everything that's happened to me is through someone. It's about building your relationship. So my friend, who was teaching for L'Oreal at the time, introduced me to the boss of L'Oreal. And so that's how that kind of came together. He just saw my social work, my social media, saw what I've been doing on Instagram, saw my work, my haircuts, my traveling, and pretty much just hired me on the spot. It was like, you know what, your work seems really good, and we want you to be part of the team. And barbering and men's cutting was brand new to L'Oreal, and so that's it. The rest was history. And now I'm the men's ambassador for L'Oreal, which means I pretty much just get to set the trends, teach the trends, for all of the educators, within Canada.
So you basically teach the teachers, basically?
I basically teach the teachers now. So yeah, pretty
It's
much.
crazy. How,
Yes, a
how
little
is
bit.
how is the whole experience traveling solo? I know like most people like they travel with friends or their partners, But you know,
Yeah,
you just kind of went to Europe by yourself and you made things happen. How was that?
yeah. I know a lot of people say, hey, they don't like traveling by themselves, and they don't like to go places by themselves and stay by themselves. Like, I don't know. I actually really enjoyed it, and I still enjoy it. Uh, for the most part, there's times, of course, where you feel like you need to be around people, but everywhere that I've been, I've always met people or I know someone, and so it's always been a great opportunity to like go out and just vibe out with different cultures. So I actually enjoy it because when people ask me the same question that you asked me, like, why do you do it? You actually get to learn more about yourself when you travel. You get to know who you are, and the more you travel, the more you see. I think all of the unanswered questions that you have about yourself get answered.
So what was a big question that you were able to answer about yourself on that like Europe trip, maybe for example?
Like, who was I? Who and what am I trying to represent? What is my purpose in life? And I think the more traveling I did, I started to understand that I want to be the best version of myself, and I've always wanted to start my own brand. I want to be the best that I can be in cutting hair and in teaching, and that's it. And I think from doing that, one thing led to another, and then 2 years ago, as you know, I moved to the UK, to go back to school. And I mean, when I say back to school, like I went to university, but I wanted to go to hairdressing school, and so that's pretty much what I did 2 years ago, and best decision that I made.
So you're like I said, you're now not you're yeah, I know you started off as a stylist, but now you're doing multiple things. You're an entrepreneur.
Mm.
As an entrepreneur where money isn't necessarily steady, you got to be good with money. So like, what's your relationship with money like? How do you invest? How do you kind of make sure that, you know, you're like you manage your finances well, that you don't go broke one day.
Yeah, I've always been big into saving money. I've always been big into investing money. Um, and so, ever since I was young, I've always been saving money. And so, from that, I started, uh, purchasing properties and getting into real estate and whatnot. So that's definitely helped, especially, during COVID and during these times where, as an entrepreneur, there wasn't much work. Um, and, yeah, like me teaching for L'Oreal, that definitely helped a lot. And like I said, I've always been smart, so like I've saved money, and so that's how I pay for school or pay for when I went in when any of these big investments. It's just pretty much just saving and understanding that it's not how much money you make, but it's how much money you save.
Yeah, because I remember in the Tamil culture article, you put Rich Dad Poor Dad as one of the books you recommended reading. So I
Yeah,
guess for you, that's kind of a big important thing. So real estate's one, and then I guess just do you invest in the stock market as well, or just kind of just save your
I
money
do.
otherwise?
I do. I invest in the stock market, and funny enough, my cousin works for RBC Security, so I have several accounts here and there, and it's long term investments, and so I was at one point, during COVID as well, I was really focusing on the stock market, and then the best advice that I got during that time was like that. I understand that you want to become successful and you want to make a lot of money, but you really have to focus on your brand and focus on that as well. And so that was the best advice, because what I did was, instead of focusing on other brands and seeing what they're doing, I was like, you know what, I have to be the best believer of my own brand. And so I just started focusing on what I have to do for Gradient.
Hmm, got it. This episode is sponsored by nobody. That's right, nobody. So if you could be kind enough to hit that subscribe button, that would mean a lot to me. You also talked about, the impact of like mentors, and you already talked about networking, but talk about maybe one or two of your mentors that's really made a big impact on kind of who, where you are right now, career wise.
Yeah, I mean, like I was mentioning, like my cousin Darshan, who works for RBC Securities, him and his whole team has been super helpful, especially the last 2 years with, business planning, just understanding how the world works, how the system works, understanding where to invest your money, and understanding, into believing in your own product, and then just kind of tackling things one task at a time. And so just like just simple things that I think we all need to understand, and it's also like the consistency of like your work ethics of waking up early morning and just working on things that you need to do and just being consistent with it. And so definitely, he's been one of them. And then when I look at uh, you know someone that's been definitely a hero to me is it's Michael Jordan, of course, and playing basketball, but the things that he's done, and people like Kobe Bryant, and it's because of their work ethics, right? It's and I'm not Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, but I definitely want to be known as them for in my craft. And so that's what kind of keeps me going, and kind of really working hard to succeed. And a lot of people look at me and they think that I'm crazy for the amount of hours that I put into my work. And of course, like best, like no one really sees the grind behind closed doors, but that that's what it is. And I'm all for that though.
You kind of mentioned some of your like mentors or like I guess role models that you look up to, but how about specifically for like as a stylist, anybody specifically that kind of helped you at the beginning or like some part of your journey to kind of take you to that next level?
Yeah, you know what? Like when I was in Montreal, I moved to Montreal because I wanted to work with one of my favorite barbers. His name is Famous, and he's so talented. He could do portraits on people's heads, and it was really great to see the level of talent that he had. But what what was so important about that is just being around him and being close to him made me want to become the best version of myself. So what we did is like, I, he saw the hunger in me too, and so we would just stay after hours and just practice on like hair designs and like just things that we wanted to get better at. And it's like it was endless hours. Like we would finish work at 7, but we were there till 12 a.m., 2 a.m. just working on things and it never seemed like it was work for us because we just loved what we did. And so that's where I built my confidence in like, you know, designing, hair design work, whatnot. And so, from that, I remember one day he was doing something and I was doing something for Chris Brown using Chris Brown's artwork. And I did it, and Chris Brown reposted that same night. And I think those are the things that kind of maybe understand like my hard work is paying off. And so when you have people like that reposting your work, and it means something. So definitely Famous is one of them, and then Vidal Sassoon is definitely the other one. I never met Vidal Sassoon. He passed. He is the pioneer of men's, or say just in general, hairdressing. He basically just applied geometry and hair architecture into the hair world. And so, now I'm making my own book now, and it's almost done, and it's pretty much on like how to cut hair. And so heavily influence on my schooling at Vidal Sassoon, and understanding that the way you lift your hair will determine if you're going to build weight or lose weight. So there's a lot of things to hair that I never understood before, but now that I understand it, I actually appreciate it more.
So you just mentioned your story about cutting Chris Brown's hair like it was nothing. So how did that, so I guess you've cut a lot of celebrities' hair in kind of your time as a stylist.
Yeah, you know what? Like, I think that's from just appreciating people, really being a go-getter, um, and building relationships. The whole story with like even Drake, how I got to cut him is like, there's a huge story behind it. his barber, J Mac, has been his barber for 12 years now. And I just had an idea for OVO Fest 5, 6 years ago. And so I reached out to J Mac, who didn't even know who I was, but then got in contact with someone that he knows. And then, it was hard to get a hold of him, but finally got a hold of him, brought the idea to him. And him being him, as a great person, he brought that idea to the OVO crew and Nico and them. And they're like, you know what, maybe we can't do something for OVO Fest. We could do something for OVO Bounce. And so that was the first thing that we did. Me and J Mac did something for OVO Bounce. And then from that, started traveling. When Drake was performing, let's say in Amsterdam or whatever, I would go to these shows, and J Mac just asked me one day, he's like, man, I need you to take care of the boy. I'm gonna have a kid soon, so I need you to come down to Toronto and take care of him. So, living at the Four Seasons for a bit with Drake, and definitely a great experience. And yeah, so those are the things, building relationships. People definitely help me, get to this point. Whether it be cutting Big Sean and J Balvin, it's all through people. When I cut J Balvin, it's in Paris, and someone messaged me, a friend of mine was like, "Thad, we need you to cut J Balvin for the Louis Vuitton show," and so that's how it happened. And so, with that being said, I know a lot of people, think that this the self-made like millionaire, the self-made man. I don't think that's true. I think that you always need people to be successful, and it's you don't do it by yourself. There's always people that's really there to help you. So yeah.
That's a lot there, man. So you lived at the Four Seasons with Drake? I thought you just cut his hair like a couple of times and then like so like this was like you had like an
I mean,
ongoing.
I was there for 2 weeks. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was during OVO Fest, and that I remember that fest was when, remember the CN Tower, like the CN Tower setup. It was for views, I think. It was
Well,
like
I
the whole.
remember you cutting hair at OVO Bounce. I remember that. I saw that, I think, on social
Yeah, yeah,
media.
yeah. So this is after that. So this
Okay,
is
okay.
like 2 years after that, where Drake did views, and like the whole setup for
All right.
OVO
Yeah,
Fest
yeah.
was like the CN Tower and all that stuff. So yeah, 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 no, for sure. Yeah, 100%. I'm super grateful for all of those opportunities. It definitely made me grow as a person, as an artist, and definitely built my confidence. And I think right now I'm just in a different mindset of what I want to accomplish in life. And as much as I love to do all those things, I think I'm just in a different mindset when it comes to like what I want to do, and that's pretty much the focus is to build Gradient.
Yeah, I want to ask you something about grading, but the last thing about cutting, these names that you talked about, like, even like sports athletes and stuff like that. Is there anything, I guess, being around a bunch of celebrities that kind of, opened your eyes about like, did it take away the celebrity or like that wow factor of being around these folks, like talking to them normally, or like, did anybody surprise you in terms of like what your perception of them was before you met them and after, you got to like cut them and talk to them? Because I feel like the people that cut your hair, like your stylist, are almost like your therapist as well. You share a lot or you talk a lot with your stylist as well. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, 100%. That's a very good question. Yeah, like, of course, I'm not gonna lie here and say that like when you're going in there, you're not nervous because it's the first time you're meeting them, and like Drake is one of my favorite artists, and people that know me, of course, like or like Chris Brown reposting my work, or like so it's like, of course, you feel like you have this like you have to have this professionalism with them. But in reality is like, and I know that now, this is what I try to tell other people as well, is like, you kind of just have to be like real, and that's what they want from you as well, right? They don't want you to be like, oh my gosh, like, I'm cutting, and taking pictures and all that stuff. Like, that's not what they want. They want someone just to be real, and just like be good at the craft, cut their hair properly, have a good conversation with them, and that's it, right? So I was able to, everybody's different. Drake, he's quiet sometimes and he talks certain times. So like over times, like you build that relationship up, and so yeah, of course, I've had great conversations with them, and even with J Balvin, like he's that guy. Like definitely shocked me. Like it's not like I know so much about like that that sound, that music, but J Balvin was like super friendly. I cut him twice in like 48 hours. He wanted me to become his barber and fly down to New York and stay with him. So like that's when you know you're doing something good, is like when someone like that really appreciates you and they're like, man, like, like, I love your work, So yeah, some of these guys, man, like very down to earth, Big Sean's very quiet. Um, but at the same time, yeah, like everyone just has their own personality and whatnot. But um to answer that question, I think you kind of just have to be like as real as you can and not try to like be a fanboy, you know?
Got it. So yeah, back to Gradient. One of the questions I forgot to ask was, how did you initially, was this like self-funded at the beginning? Like, are you just funding it at the
Yeah.
beginning and then like trying to make sales to kind of recoup that cost, or?
It's all self-funded. It's all self-funded by me, and only me. I've always been a big dreamer. I've always wanted to do this, and like over the years, I've always like I started brands before. I started my own website before. I've done all of that, and I think once I went to hairdressing school, and I was my my commute to school every day was like an hour and 20 minutes, and so I had to take if you guys been to the UK, it's like you got to take this like underground train, and it could be super packed in the morning or super packed in the evening, but like that's what it was. But I loved it. Like I don't know what it was. I just loved sitting down and either listening to music, reading a book. That's where I read like like Shoe Dog. Or read all these books, and also you're able to dream. And so what I mean by that is like you just dream about the things that you want to do in life, and it really gave me the option to really just like dream about the next chapter of my life. So what that did was like I'm like I have to do this, and then started jotting down ideas. And I still remember looking at Fear of God, and figuring out like, okay, what's my version of like these cool luxury brands. And so that's what it was. And then I came back, and then came down to Vancouver. COVID happened. My friend, Adrian Demir, Creative House, like he has his own creative agency. He just started it, and he's my creative director as well. And so we kind of just sat down, put the ideas together, and that was it. I started developing products, researching for the right aesthetics, and then everything was just put together. And it took a year and a half to put everything together, but I'm super confident with where it's at and where it's gonna go. It's like I said, it's only 5 months old, but now that I'm, I've created relationships throughout the years that now I'm using to my advantage. So you're gonna be seeing a lot more collaborations with huge multi-million dollar companies, and I'm gonna be selling more of those products too. So pretty much, now it's going into like men's hair care and men's skin care as well, which is super, I think it's very important. And yeah, a lot of exciting things, and a lot of work to be done, but I enjoy it.
Like, how do you have any sales yet, or like is that kind of coming up in terms of, because it's a, I know it's a 5 month product, but it sounds like you already have some kind of sales or coming up in the pipeline.
Yeah, I mean, sales started the first day. I mean, I was
Hmm.
super nervous the first day that I launched. Um, but sales started happening the first day. I had someone buy 26 of the same thing 2 days ago.
Oh wow,
So like,
that's awesome.
I'm super blessed, and I'm happy, and I think there's just more. Um, there's more to it. Like I said, I'm gonna start selling like actual other brands as well,
Yeah.
such as like Kiehl skincare, Kerastach hair products, L'Oreal products, and then the goal is to then become like a Kith, which if you guys don't know Kith, Ronnie Fag from New York, he's created this beautiful brand, and does a lot of these collaborations with all the brands from any brands from Nike, Reebok to Montclair to Versace. So I think that would be like the goal for myself.
So just to make sure I understand that, like right now you sell your own branded Gradient products on your
Yep.
website, you're getting
Yep.
sales, but the
Yep.
eventual goal is to get into like a kit So like somebody else is you're putting the kit together, or somebody else is putting the kit together with your products in it.
So what I mean, sorry. So what I mean by Kith is a brand from New York.
Oh, kit,
So
kit. Okay, got
yeah,
it, got it.
yeah, Kith is a brand from New York, and so but that's a good thing that you stated. So Kith is a brand from New York, and so he has his own brand of things like clothes, and then he collaborates with other people. So that's kind of the idea that I want to take as well in the business strategy. I have my own product line, but then I want to start collaborating, with, let's say, like a clipper line or with a skincare brand, something like that, where I could see, like, an actual collaboration
Hmm.
with some huge brands. So like that's the direction that I want to go.
Did you know that every time you left a 5 out of 5 review for this podcast, a Tamil parent lets their child pursue a career in the creative arts? Okay, that's probably not true, but if there's a chance that it is, do you really want to jinx it? Leave a review. Do it for the young creative in you. So right now, like your brand gradient, like, so do you create the products yourself and then what they're kind of like shipped? Like, do you do all the shipping yourself, or do you have like a team or like some kind of
Yeah,
service that does all that for you?
I have a team actually, so everything is shipped from Vancouver. Yeah, everything is like, I carefully picked out like the aesthetics of the boxes and how that, and the thank you cards, whatever, and then I have someone that ships it out. But yes, I do have a team in Vancouver, a team of, let's say, six right now. Someone I have a project manager, I have a creative director, I have a graphic designer, and then a few other people that helps me, photographer that puts all of this together. And so, I've been posting a lot of content, this like high production content, which was done by some of these individuals in Vancouver, or, my brother Pure Vision as well. We just launched season 2 for Gradient, and he did the video for it.
Oh, that's crazy. So, um, with your site that you mentioned, like you just got an order for 26 of the same product. How are people finding out? I know you have relationships, you're obviously known in the space, but like how are people finding out about you and kind of purchasing from you?
Um, Social media. I mean, social media has definitely been the number one factor.
Hmm.
I haven't even done any like paid marketing or advertising yet.
Hmm.
I'm actually developing that relationship with someone from LA right now to get that going. But yeah, it's just been, social media and word of mouth pretty much, because I've been posting all of my content on social media, and so in return, people just go to the website and see what's available and purchase.
And I know so far, like you described this journey and everyone knows you, they've seen the end product, they've seen you're successful, you're doing all this cool stuff. But at the beginning of the journey, especially in the Tamil community, I'm sure friends, especially family, probably didn't agree with your choices. I could be, putting words in your mouth, but like, how do people, what do people think of at the beginning and what are people saying now, especially friends and family? I'm very curious.
Yeah, when I was young, and I get it, right? Like, we're first generation. My parents, our parents came down here to work super hard and give us an opportunity to go to school to become a doctor, a lawyer, and engineer, right? So, you know, when those things are not done, of course they're gonna get disappointed, and they're not gonna be happy with the choices that you're making. So, um, it wasn't easy at first, but it's crazy because even when I was a little kid and going to school, like, the way artists, and I'm sure like people that are listening to this, the way we think is quite different from people that would think with numbers or whatever. Like, we think with the other side of our brain, and we just want to draw, we want to create, we want to paint, and so I've always been into illustration, drawing, and artwork and whatever. And so I knew that's what I really liked, but you kind of just force yourself, or you tell yourself, I can't do this, I can't do this, or I can't make this a living because, like, this is not normal. And like, for people now, at least they have that opportunity to make that choice. But for us, we didn't have that choice. Like, even in school, not even our parents, our school, like, you didn't really have the option to be like, oh, you know what, I want to go to art school or fashion school or whatever, right? So like, you kind of just force yourself to be like, oh, you know what, I can't really do this, so I might as well just start doing, what other people want you to do.
Mm.
And then you kind of just force yourself to do it, but you're not really like happy about it. And that was a struggle, 100%, and I always played sports my whole life. And so I think that it went from that to then just focusing on basketball and wanted to be a basketball star. And so that's why I went to York. I played basketball for York University. This is before Nadoon days, and Nadoon is the I would say is the icon for York University. But in terms of being a Tamil basketball player, but yeah, so this is before Nadoon days. But you know, um, I went to university for that, and then I went for kinesiology, and I switched to business because I'm like, I'm a business guy, and I switched back to kinesiology. But in reality, it's like I would have just gone to fashion school or hair school, but I never thought that was an option because you're no one's saying, yeah, go do it. You know, they're like, no, why would you do that? Like, how are you gonna make a living out of it? That's what
Yeah.
people are saying to you. So at when I was that age, that's what people were telling me, including my friends, not just my family. Like, oh, what are you gonna do with that? Like, just you shouldn't, you can do that as a hobby, but you can't do that for like, as a profession, as a career. So it definitely was a struggle. I stopped even cutting hair because of that. Because then I started telling myself, this isn't serious. And so, I got out of it and then went to university, finished university. I think for a certain point of time, like I just wasn't, I was lost to tell you the truth. I think I was just trying to figure out what life was and trying to figure out what am I supposed to do. And so during that time, that took a long time actually, to try to figure out, what I really wanted to do, or just going back to stuff that I know that I was good at and I should do. So, it was 7 years ago is when I was like, you know what, I think I just need to get out of here. So I moved to Montreal, and it's funny enough, it's like going back to my roots, because that's where I'm originally from. So moved back to Montreal, and that was it. The rest is history. Just started working at Notorious, and then just kind of just grinded, and then one thing left to another, and just kind of built my way up to then working for L'Oreal, just traveling the world, going to Vidal Sassoon, and then coming back where starting a business.
So where do you see yourself in like 5 years?
Still running the business for sure, but of course, like being able to like being able to do what I'm doing now and then just doing it at a higher level, right? And then
Mm.
having, like I'm doing this event in November, and I have these huge sponsorships that believe in what I'm doing. And I think in 5 years, I'm gonna have, quadruple that amount. And so that's where I want to be. At that time, I want to be, at that point, I think I would want to do like runways. I want to do like huge meetings with these huge brands and be able to collaborate and just have an actual lifestyle brand, not just like hair, but clothes and skincare as well. And yeah, that's kind of where I see myself in 5 years, just definitely being successful with Gradient, and definitely being internationally known.
So let's roll the clock back. What about if you had a chance to talk to 16-year-old dad, what would you tell him?
I think that's an easy one, man. I would just tell him. I mean, that's not an easy one actually. I would I would say follow your instinct. I would say, and that's this is probably the most important question that you've asked me today, because I hope that there's young people listening to this. So I would say, don't listen to nobody else, and I'm sorry if I'm offending parents by saying this, but don't even listen to your parents, because parents don't even know what's best for you. They think they know what's best for you, and but they don't really know you. They don't know what's going on in your mind. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have that conversation with your parents. I'm just saying that if you really want to do something, you just go for it. But if you're gonna do it, you do it 190%. Like there's like you just have to put in all the time, all the work, just believe in yourself and just go for it.
How about personal legacy? How would you want to be described or remembered by your friends and family?
Yeah. I want to be known, you know, one for the first thing before I even talk about like business or my craft and what I do is like I want to be remembered for being there for my family and being there for my friends and always being like that caring person, right? Like I think that's more important than like your career and whatnot. But you know, that was actually one of the questions that I asked myself before moving to Montreal. I was like, personal legacy, and one day when we all pass away, what do we want to be remembered for? And so that's it. That was it. It was like, okay, number one, I want to be known for like as a caring person that I took care of family, friends, was there for them. And two, when it comes to the craft, like, of course, just being the best that I was, but also being able to help people. And so that's my purpose with hair and education. And when I teach is like, I always get so much compliments from or so many thank yous every day where just people are like, you know what, you inspire me and you made me do this, you made me do that, you made me get into haircutting or like I leveled up because of you teaching me or you helping me. So that's what I want to be remembered for.
Hmm. Who's somebody from the global Tamil community that you admire and why? And who's somebody that isn't Tamil that you admire and why?
Wow. I I have to think about this because I've been out of the Tamil culture for a while, um, but ooh, like I think I'm gonna go back to my cousin Darshan, who works for RBC Securities. Um, him and my brother as well. Those two for sure. My brother because I admire him because in college when I was still going to university and he was going there as well, he decided to say, you know what, I'm going to follow my dreams. And so he went to Seneca and did his whole video thing and then just really focused on that. Where me, I was still like figuring things out for the next 7 to 10 years. So I admire him just choosing what he really wanted to do, and he's super successful. And at what he does now, he's very talented and creative. So I admire him for that, and my cousin because and these people are they're in their 40s, both of them, and for them to be so successful. My cousin worked for RBC Securities, and he handles other people's money. His portfolio is worth 500 million. And just being able to get people to trust him with their money, I think is very admiring. So those two for sure.
Actually, I've known Darsh. I don't know him well, but I've known him, and I've seen him kind of go from. I think he was at RBC at a like much lower thing, like
Yeah,
level. Now he's
yeah,
kind of like I think he's got his own team. He's like focusing on high net
yeah,
worth. So yeah, I've seen him progress, which is pretty crazy.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
How about for the non-Tamil side? I can kind of guess what you're gonna say, but I want to see if you say it.
It was who is the most admiring
No,
for
so who would you admire? Who do you admire that's not Tamil from like anybody that's anybody globally?
anybody globally. I mean, yeah, I think this is an easy one because I'm gonna say Michael Jordan.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, and it's just because there's just so much childhood memories, and I think there's just goosebumps when you talk about a person like that because of like the level of admiration that we have for him, and it's crazy because even when I was young and watching him, like I made sure my whole family watched basketball with him, and so like I got my whole family to watch like this guy just put on a show, and so like it, I think it's because of him like we all got to dream about like doing so many great things in life, so I'm definitely gonna say Michael Jordan without a doubt.
Did you watch the documentary?
100%.
Yeah.
For sure, for
Did
sure.
that make you like love Jordan even more?
Well, like for sure, 100%. And there's sides of to him, of course, like he could be this like arrogant person and he could be this or that, but like nobody's perfect. And I think, when you're at that level, you just also expect the highest from other people. And that's the thing, like it's the same thing where I'm at too sometimes, like where I would be cutting hair and I would stay 3 hours extra to work on something or to do something extra. And not everybody's built that way. Not everybody's is meant to be a business or owner or very successful in their craft. There's people that are just there to 9 to 5. And I think sometimes I have a hard time understanding why someone just be like, what, clock in, clock out, where I'm this person that's like, what, like I'm a go-getter, I'm a dreamer, and there's more to it. So, you know, that's why I understand where Jordan is coming from in the documentary, and I know that as well. So, you know, um, no surprises for me.
Money can be hard to come by, but here's a $100 opportunity for you. Join my free newsletter for free exclusive content and a free chance to win $100 when I hold special draws. Did I mention that it's free? So funny, the whole time I've been talking to you from certain angles, your face, you look exactly like Kyrie Irving. I don't know if you got that. I don't remember that though. Yeah. Well, that's a good segue kind of into the last part of the podcast. So it's called Creator Confessions. Basically, I'll say a bunch of statements, and you're going to kind of give me the first answer that pops to mind. Ready?
Sure.
Favorite Tamil food?
Crab curry.
Something that scares you?
Ooh, something that scares me. That's a good one. Dying.
An insecurity that you have?
I'm skinny.
Favorite show you're watching?
Favorite show I'm watching. I'm not watching any show because I'm working right now. I've been working. But favorite show, I can't even, I don't even know how to answer that, to tell you the truth. Like I don't even watch, I'm not even watching any shows. I'm watching, like yesterday I was watching an interview on Phil Jackson. So sorry.
You're a traveler, so a place you're itching to travel to after the pandemic is, over, kind of resolved in a way.
Greece.
Fellow Tamil creator you want to give a shout out to?
You.
I'll take it. Favorite childhood memory?
Favorite childhood memory. I think just I love like just going over family members' house and sleeping over. So I would say like just sleeping over with my cousins.
What do you do for fun outside of work? I know you don't know what that is, but what do you do for fun outside of work?
Um, I play FIFA.
uh, Favorite film of all time or movie of all
Favorite
time?
film of all time. Damn. Probably like another basketball movie. I'm gonna say, it
Coach
was like,
Carter or something like that?
Coach Carter or like Above the Rim with Tupac. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What's something you've bought in the last couple of years that you have no, and you splurged on, but you have no regrets about it?
clothes. That happens all the time.
Pet peeve.
Excuses.
If you knew that you were going to die tomorrow, a regret that you would have.
Wow, that's a good question. Um, I what regret would I have? Not probably. I don't know. That's a tough one. I'm gonna say not. I haven't been to Asia, so I would say like not being, traveling in Asia, other than Sri Lanka.
Age you want to retire by.
60.
Celebrity whose life you want to experience for just one day.
Yeah. When you ask questions like that, it's just a little weird because like, because I've met so many celebrities.
Yeah,
So, I'm gonna say like, I know everyone has their own celebrities, but like I'm really into like fashion designers, and so like I'm gonna say someone like Kim Jones, who's the creative director for Dior.
Mm. So, and finally, a good way to end off is, what's of a piece of advice that you would give to your fellow creators out there?
Um,
It can be like advice, it could be a rant, whatever you want to leave them
I
with.
like that question actually. So I'm gonna say, I think my success, and and I'm still trying to progress in life. I'm still trying to do what I'm trying to do, but I think what it is just not think about money first. I think it's about really just building the craft and building relationships. You know, when you just message someone and say, "Hey, like, love what you're doing. Let's collaborate on something. Let's work together." And then like the please and the thank yous. I think that's like super important. Yes, like not thinking about like the money aspect of things. And I think a lot of people ask me this question like that, like, how did you do this? How did you do that? And a simple reason is just being respectful and not thinking about the monetary part first.
Great advice. And that's kind of a good way to kind of end off the podcast. That was awesome. I think people are going to kind of love your story. If somebody's listening to this podcast or inspired by kind of your journey and they want to kind of reach out to you, what's the best way for them to connect? Instagram, email, like what do you prefer?
I prefer email just because like there's so many things happening on social media in terms of like my business as well. So if you can please just email me at info@gradientworld.com. That would be the best way to reach out to me.
Awesome. And for you, those of you listening, appreciate it as always. On to the next episode.